going to be affecting Africans, to be very specific, and how this is playing out in South Africa, where, of course, the New South Institute is based in. We're going to have that discussion, so please do have us look at your questions and any of those concerns that you have, and we'll be having that discussion with him. Later on, Isabel Donadio and David Fagan are going to be joining me as well here to have a look at their keynote tour, which is happening in Kenya. But the theme is From Invisible to Invincible. So they're going to have us take a look at how you can move from invisible to invincible, and I'm sure this is an interesting conversation that entrepreneurs and also any other Kenyan will be interested in. So they are the founders of Top Talent Agency. We're also interested to know what the Top Talent Agency does and how, of course, you as a Kenyan can get to benefit from the various things that they are doing at the Top Talent Agency, and how exactly this will be helping you move from invisible to invincible. This and much more is what we have for you here on Biashara Tuesday. Remember, the conversation is on business, the economy, technology, and politics as well. Do send us your questions on social media platforms at KUTV Kenya, and also tag me as well at Richard_OKENYE. We'll be all the way to 10 in the morning, so our interactions will be throughout this show. Do tag us, and don't forget to send out your shout-outs to anyone else who want to tune into this show. Having a look at the roads on the alternative routes that you can use, what is happening, current traffic conditions in the city, courtesy of Mathri route, and also from yourself as well. Tell us where you are at the road at the moment, how you expect that to change. Of course, the weather is also going to affect traffic. Please inform us, and I'll be relaying that information throughout the show. I'll be looking also at the developments from your world in terms of news updates that comes to you here on KUTV Rise today, so don't miss out on that. Please do stay tuned. Let's kick off this show. Right, so I'm having a look at Mathri route, and it's giving me information mostly on what is happening in Nairobi. But if you're in any other city, any other town outside of the capital city, please tell us how that looks like. But here, Jambo Thika Road, all the way from Garden City, heavy traffic. And on reaching Muthaiga, it is a parking lot. I am Polycarp telling us that. Thika Road, Kameanza Pale, all soaps. Currently, Mathare, Huruma, Juja Road and Pangani areas, traffic is moving on well, and normal business is going on. The head of protest is still sleeping at his current home, THK Kenya, telling us that. Accident at Peponi Road involving boda and a small car, so proceed there carefully. No traffic on Mombasa Road from Imara Mall to Nyayo roundabout. Francis Ngala telling us that. So Mombasa Road from Imara to Nyayo roundabout, hakuna traffic. Kenyatta Avenue is rolling back to life after Maandamano Monday, and that's what it's been termed now. Hashtag Maandamano Monday. Morning, Thika Road lovers, how is the traffic? It's not looking good for you. Thika Road, Roysambu, kunaendelea. Kutoka Roysambu KUKENYE, lakini normal snarl-up starts there at Utalii Drift. If you want to go to town from Utalii, drift to the service lane outside Mathari Hospital. Today we are back to traffic on Thika Road. Yesterday was a bit smooth. How is Outer Ring Road to Thika Road today? That is Namuzia asking. There crazy traffic also building up at Muthaiga if you're heading towards Nairobi CBD. Thika Road again, traffic building up as early as all soaps. How is the situation on Juja Road and Outer Ring Road? More questions there, but Juja Road, we've already been told that's smooth so far, but if there's any development, please tell us that. There are thugs who are free roaming. Avoid service lane from Manyanja Road and exit to all soaps. So if you are coming from Juja Road, Outer Ring Road, thugs are free roaming, and that's an update from Muguna HN. The effect of the planned march to State House. Thika Road yesterday was so clear on a Monday morning, something that is unprecedented. And this morning, back to normal traffic. Mombasa Road, Membiwa, from Imara to Nyayo roundabout, there is no traffic. But if there's any new developments, tell us that. Major roads this morning returning back to business in Nairobi, so you can expect traffic definitely on most of them. But if you have alternative routes that we can inform people on this morning, please do tell us that. We've already seen that on Thika Road, people are advised to use a service lane when they get to Utalii, and also to avoid that service lane from Manyanja Road exit to All Soaps. So those are the few alternatives we've gotten this morning, but we will continue to have a look at that as well as we go on with the show. Right now, I'm going to prepare that conversation that I already teased earlier on with the New South Institute director, who will be joining me on Zoom to have the conversation on their role on world politics, and also what we can learn from the various mass actions which are happening across various countries, and also how does the government get to react or to respond to these concerns which are being raised by its citizens. Are there political motives? Of course there always are, but how deep are the political motives behind these mass actions, and what line can we draw between political motives and also concerns of the citizens, in a bid to ensure that these governments are also separating those two aspects and responding to the issues that are facing their citizens. This is Biashara Tuesday. The conversations are just heating up, so tag us on the hashtag Biashara Tuesday. We look at that, and also on my personal handle at Richard_OKENYE. I'll be back to continue with the show. Don't go too far. All right, Biashara Tuesday is still live on air. Ivo Chipken is the director, New South Institute, which is based in South Africa. And as I said there, he'll be joining me on Zoom live from Johannesburg to have a look at world politics as well, and relate with what is happening in South Africa and in Kenya as well. The New South Institute is a policy institute based in Johannesburg, and is the founder and director as well there, and previously has been at the Public Affairs Research Institute at the University of Witwatersrand and the University of Cape Town for 10 years. Before that, has written various articles and books and reports. One of the most interesting ones that I was having a look at is the personalizing and depersonalizing power, the appointment of executive officers in key state institutions. We've seen that there is CASs who have been appointed. There have been CSs appointed, 50 of them by President William Ruto last week, and this has been forwarded to Parliament for approval. However, there's now a case which is certified urgent by the High Court to have a look at these appointments and see whether they are according to the law and also according to the Constitution. This is one of those reports that he's been having a look at, depersonalizing and personalizing power, the appointment of executive officers into key state institutions. So that's a very important thing that I'm going to be addressing with him as well, and also relating that to what has happened recently in Kenya. One other thing, how do we make sure that state capture can never happen again? So issues of state capture, a conversation which started way back in the campaign period in 2022. What is state capture, and how is this a phenomenon across various democracies in the world? And how do we make sure that state capture can never happen again? And is it happening really, or is it just a word that we've made up due to other political conversations that are happening? Another very interesting article that he did some time back, and this involves China, and considering that Kenya is doing business with China and also in debt on various key infrastructure, how do we, if China, this is the title of the article, if China can make corruption work in its favor, why not South Africa? And this appeared in the Sunday Times in 2022 of October. And I'm going to be translating that to Kenya and asking, if China can make corruption work in its favor, why not Kenya? because we have been grappling with the issue of corruption for quite some time. The New South Institute looks at these issues and much more, and that is a conversation that I'll be having with the director, Eva, who will be joining me on Zoom, as I just mentioned there. From invisible to invincible is top talent agency's theme in their keynote tour, which is happening right now in Kenya, and we're going to see where else they will be heading to. But first of all, how do you, of course, ensure that you are turning from invisible to invincible, whether it's through your talent, your skill, your area of work, your profession, or even school? How do you manage to turn around your situation? And I think this is important for all entrepreneurs in this period of a looming recession all across the world, and of course fears of the rising cost of living. How do you survive during that period? If you're a business that is hiring talent, how do you ensure that you're bringing the best of talent? Isabel Donadio is the founder of Top Talent Agency, and accompanied by an international speaker and an award-winning publicist, David Fagan. They are a couple that is based in Phoenix, and this is Phoenix, Arizona, the United States. They'll be here on Biashara Tuesday to have that conversation. So any question you have on those two bits of discussions we'll be having, please send them through to us. We are live on our Facebook page, KUTV Kenya, and also on YouTube, KUTV Kenya Live. I'll be back in a short while.
Hello everyone, this is the new chapter of Let's Be Fit. I'll be host DiCaplo. I'm here to give you various workouts. I'll be having different trainers. We'll have Zumba classes, we'll have aerobics classes, we'll have box exercise, we'll have kata box, just 6:30 a.m. to 7 a.m. Keep it locked, make sure we keep fit, and that's it from me to you. Let's
Kipindi hewani ni mitindo ya kipwani. Kama ilivyo kipindi hiki kinahusu nyimbo za tarab, chakacha, midwara, midundiko, bila kusahau mapishi. Ambao ndio uti wa mgongo wa pwani ya Afrika Mashariki.
Jamani, swahibu zangu mliopo maskani, hatuonani wenzangu, najua mwanitamani.
Hapa KUTV, nahoda mwendesha chombo cha baharini, yani ua linalonukia na kuvutia waridi tamu.
Baada ya kutafuta kazi, tunaweza kuanzisha miradi yetu ambayo ingetusaidia kubadilisha maisha ya wazazi wetu.
Kwa vijana wenzangu, wengi wale wana kazi, lakini ikiwa sisi wenyewe tutajiamini, tunaweza kujiajiri wenyewe.
Afrika kwa kweli tuna mahitaji ambayo ukiyasuluhisha unaweza kuathiri watu kwenye bara hili
bila uoga. Watu huwa na uzalishaji zaidi, wanajawa na ujasiri, wanakuwa wabunifu na wanakuwa wenye maarifa.
Niliamua kuacha kazi, hata kama sitafanikiwa, nitakuwa nimejaribu, nitakuwa najua haiwezekani.
Hakuna kitu cha ajabu hapa. Kila anayepata ufanisi hufanya kazi usiku na mchana.
Kitu kitakusukuma na kuwezesha kupata maarifa ambayo hukuwa nayo.
Tunajaribu kutengeneza kitu kitakachopita mipaka ya nchi hii.
Ikiwa unataka kubadilisha ulimwengu, anza na nyumbani.
Technology, science, innovation, ICT and research. These are the ingredients upon which the solutions to the 21st century problems are founded. In a world that is rapidly changing, it's all hands on deck to ensure a balance in all fields of life. Women, young and old, are also in the front line, breaking the glass ceiling, becoming thought leaders in the larger tech space. Not forgetting other societies marginalized. And when the tech Avengers come together, we inch closer to a much safer, efficient, and sustainable world. What we view as a norm in today's advanced world was just an idea, and for nostalgic reasons, we trace back to the iconic days to bring you the Retro Tech. On Technovation Show, we encapsulate all the pillars of the fourth industrial revolution, decoded in a language, all for one for all. Every Monday at 8:30 as we push the mantra, keep learning something new each and every day. Only on KUTV, a new experience.
What's up, fashionistas? Looking for a show that brings you the latest in the world of fashion, glamour, creativity, and style? Fashion Diaries got you sorted as we explore street fashion, modeling, runways, red carpet events, and so much more.
Catch me, Ashley Asachi, as we unlock the greatest fashion events. Keep it locked.
Focus on Health is a show that creates awareness on matters health and informs you on various diseases, their causes, treatment, prevention, coping, and support. So join me, Boari Michelle, every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. only on KUTV. You can also follow us on our social media platforms at KUTV Focus on Health on Facebook and also on YouTube, and Health Focus on Instagram, because your health is your wealth. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Access to knowledge, solution to unanswered questions.
Guidelines to pursuing your rights and repossessing your property, intellectual or material.
This and more only on Law Matters.
All right, welcome back to Biashara Tuesday. Thank you for staying with us here. We're having a conversation on business, the economy, politics, and now we are switching things up to world politics. Having this discussion with director of the New South Institute, Director Chipkin, is joining me on Zoom live from South Africa. It is they're trying to strengthen delicate democracies by building effective and accountable institutions. I'm seeing here on their website, of course, the various latest insights that they have been able to have a look at, bridging communities through thinking. And the director, of course, will be telling us, of course, how the role of the New South Institute is like in the politics in South Africa and also in world politics. But first, let's just have a look at let's get to introduce the director first, and then we can switch to this conversation. Good morning to you, Director Chipkin.
Good morning. Thank you very much for having me on Kenyan TV. It's a great honor and privilege.
All right. How are things? Are you joining us from Johannesburg?
I'm in Johannesburg. It's a little earlier than it is in Kenya, so fairly early in the morning here, but a lovely morning it seems. And we've just come after a day of what they call the national shutdown, the kind of a day of protest. So I think today will be a little calmer than yesterday was. Although, frankly, yesterday was calmer than where a lot of people expected. So generally fairly calm in South Africa.
Right, true. And I think we're going to have a look at that difference in calm between South Africa and Kenya. Mass actions were experience on both sides, but there was quite a huge difference in how it was handled by the government and the opposition as well. But a bit later, we'll take a look at that. On your site, or in the message that you are trying to send, is that we are strengthening delicate democracies. What will you describe is a delicate democracy, and what's the one that's not a delicate democracy?
Well, we think all democracies are delicate, and what we mean by that is fragile, but not in the sense of fragile states, which is the literature which has come to dominate the studies of many African countries. We think democracies as a particular kind of institution are inherently fragile. We've used this term delicate. It comes out of really the experience of South Africa, but I think of what we call in the New South, and I'll come to that in a moment. So we've now had 30 years of democratic government in South Africa. The experiences have been a real roller coaster, as I'm sure for those of you watching South Africa from East Africa are fully aware. For the purposes of this conversation, there were some notable shifts. The first decade of democracy, perhaps a little longer, there are quite extraordinary achievements in terms of state building. We build a national treasury, a revenue services. These are remarkable achievements, given that you must understand that by the end of the apartheid period, the apartheid government had effectively broken the country up into a whole range of separate countries. There were at least 6 nominally independent countries, so-called, had been given independence, and then there were a whole lot of others which had various degrees of autonomy. Each one had their own public administrations, their own health departments, their own police departments, their own education departments. Within South Africa itself, the country had been fragmented according to race. So there were different educational departments on the basis of whether you were white or Indian or coloured. So extraordinary fragmentation of administrations, breaking up of the country into these virtually separate states.
Right.
Without, of course, legitimacy. So extraordinary achievements in the first decade and longer of democracy, of rebuilding, of building a sort of a unitary state. And then what we saw from around the mid-noughties, 2015 or so, a tremendous decay or undermining of these very institutions. South Africa's had a real sort of roller coaster ride. We think that this South African experience is one which is of great value and trying to understand for South Africans, but also more generally. I think it parallels experiences in many countries in the world, including across the African continent, but also in South America. Why are we using the term New South? Because I think a lot of our experience resonates with experiences also in Eastern Europe. So we're trying to bring the post-socialist experience, the transition away from socialism to some other kind of society in Eastern Europe, into comparison with the experience of post-apartheid and post-colonial societies. Yeah. In these environments, some of these transitions were directed towards democracy, and we think that that process has been very, very uneven in that regard, and we're trying to understand the complexities, especially from an institutional point of view, of why these transitions have been as complex as they have been.
Right. Is this, would you say this rough transition or the troubled transition could be the reason behind the phenomenon now called as state capture?
So we definitely think it's part of it, and for unexpected reasons. I know that there's this whole discourse in South Africa and Southern Africa and across the African continent of the sort of inherent corruption of leadership on the continent. We think that's nonsense. We don't think that African leaders or South African leaders or Southern African leaders are especially corrupt. What we're trying to understand is the institutional conditions under which corruption emerges. Mm-hmm. So what we pay a lot of attention to, and we think it's really important, is understanding the histories of civil service reform, of institutional reform. So we think a lot of the problems which South Africa has leading up to state capture are related to 2 things. The way in which the ruling party, the African National Congress, has understood itself as a ruling party in relationship to government, a tendency to conflate government and state, so a tendency both as a party and in terms of policy design, to create spaces for the mixing of party appointments and state appointments. Mm-hmm. That's the first. And secondly is the way in which we went for new public management, which gave a tremendous autonomy to a whole core of managerial functions in the state, which the ANC were then able to deploy its own people into. So we're trying to understand state capture in relationship to these longer institutional histories in South Africa. Interestingly enough, the term state capture, of course, comes out of the study of studies of post-Soviet society, of the transition away from socialism in the former Soviet Union and in Eastern Europe. So it's a term that's traveled from those countries, and we see there very similar kinds of political parties emerging, very similar relationships to the state. So we think that the point of comparison is very interesting. I suspect that in Kenya there are similar dynamics, certainly across Southern Africa, in Zimbabwe, for example, there's similar dynamics. South America is interesting because that dynamic hasn't manifested, but for interesting reasons related to the autonomy of the security of autonomy of the public service in relationship to, for example, the state.
Right. So I was having a look at, of course, the various publications that the New South Institute has been doing, and yourself as well, the articles, and my most interesting one to begin with is the depersonalizing power. We have seen this appointment of executive officers to key state institutions across Africa, a complaint by majority of the citizens that maybe we are getting incompetent leaders into these positions, into these institutions, and reforms might be quite difficult when we have these kinds of leaders. Is there a way to depersonalize power? And what is it you could maybe point out through your research that you've done at the New South Institute? What will be the reason why we still have weak leaders coming into these executive positions?
So we did this piece of sort of open-minded research just to get a sense of, from a legislative point of view, not a political point of view, just from a legal point of view, what is the situation of how senior officials in key departments, the National Treasury, for example, or the head of the police, or the head of the prosecutions authority, how are they appointed legislatively? What are the requirements? So this is not a question of the individuals involved, their biographies, their personalities. It's from a purely legislative point of view. And what do we find? We find something quite astonishing. That in South Africa, the legislative requirements are almost non-existent. In other words, they set almost no preconditions for those appointments. So I'll give you an example. In South Africa, the head of the police, the legislation doesn't require any experience of police work. It doesn't require any particular qualifications. All that it requires of the head of the police in South Africa is that they don't have a criminal record. So we see similar kinds of laxity, of openness in this appointment across departments and across the state. We think it was deliberate. We think it was deliberate to allow politicians to appoint their people into those key positions. So it's not a question simply of the African National Congress. We think this politicization of the administration has been written into the very structure of the civil service. So this for us is a starting point. In order to start attracting the right kinds of people to those roles, we need to start with a process of structural reform. So it's not just about persuading the African National Congress or any particular ruling party, for example, not to deploy the wrong people, but rather we need to start with systems and processes. Let me just say one thing though. This politicization in South Africa does not come from nowhere. Don't forget, the post-apartheid government inherits a bureaucracy and a civil service largely from the apartheid period and from the Bantustans. It's deeply suspicious. The African National Congress is deeply suspicious for good reason that this apartheid public service is not going to implement its policies. So it deliberately politicizes the administration in order to get the transition going, so that we can understand the reasons. The argument just now is that perhaps those reasons are past now, fulfilled themselves. And we need to move on to a different dispensation. And then in that regard, we've had a breakthrough recently. Late last year, the South African Cabinet endorsed a framework document for what they call professionalizing the public service. And one of the issues it's seeking to address is this kind of structural politicization of the South African public service. So I think from that point of view, there's some very hopeful green shoots in South Africa.
Right. When we now switch back to the latest developments, such as especially the mass actions which have been experienced in Kenya and South Africa, structural reforms are quite a discussion as well there. So in Kenya, the opposition leader, Raila Odinga, is raising various issues, the cost of living being key among them. But the other one is the appointment of electoral officials, which is now says have been politicized to a point where the president might be appointing people maybe who will protect the next phase of election. So when you look at this as an expert in, of course, world politics, is this an expression of political differences, or are we addressing social grievances? Is there a line, or are these two things also addressed in the same regard?
Yeah, it's a marvelous question. So our sense is that sometimes the most fundamental things are things which academics and policymakers, and for that matter journalists, and this is why I'm very happy to be on the show, tend not to focus on. So in South Africa and in Southern Africa, and I think in Eastern Europe and in Latin America as well, many of the dynamics that make democracy fragile is the inability of governments to be able to perform on their mandates, deliver services, the language we use in South Africa, provide electricity. I don't know if you know that in South Africa there's a massive electricity crisis. I'm in Johannesburg and we're often without electricity for up to 12 hours a day. There's a water crisis, even though the dams are full. We sometimes don't have water in large parts of the country. So there's a real crisis of basic infrastructure, and this is related to the character of government. The constitution in South Africa, when it started, and I'm not sure of the situation in Kenya, and I suspect it's slightly different, went fairly far, not far enough though, fairly far in creating autonomy for some institutions. So we have a public protector, for example. We have tried to insulate some institutions from direct political interference. Interestingly enough, our electoral commission is fairly well insulated from direct political appointments. So it's quite difficult for any political party to second or direct their people directly into the commission. So to some extent, the constitution is done fairly well. But in the civil service, in the public service, local government and in provincial and national government, in those departments, in state-owned enterprises, that insulation is very, very weak. And it's precisely that weakness in those key institutions that political parties have been able to take advantage of to put their own people into. I suspect in Kenya, I don't know the situation in Kenya, it'd be very interesting to do that comparative work, but it sounds to me as if one of the things to investigate as journalists and as policymakers is the degree to which institutionally, in terms of the institutional design, key institutions like your electoral commission are insulated or properly insulated from political parties. In other words, how possible is it in terms of the law and in terms of process, is it for the ruling party or for politicians to deploy their friends or colleagues or allies or cadres into those key positions?
All right, great. And now, how would you advise governments in a delicate democracy to respond to such mass unrest? In Nairobi yesterday, several leaders who participated in those mass actions were arrested, including leaders in Senate, leaders in Parliament, and also the senator of the capital city of Kenya. I saw that in South Africa, the protesters were able to listen to their leaders and disperse peacefully, but it wasn't the same case in the streets of Nairobi and in various other towns where tear gas canisters were released to protesters, and also some of them including live ammunitions. How does the government, or how will the government effectively respond to unrest in a way that it doesn't seem like they are, twisted or being twisted by the opposition, but still addressing the social grievances which are being raised by citizens?
I mean, again, this is another great achievement of South Africa over the last 30 years, is that South Africa's democracy is robust. I mean, there really is democratic contestation. The African National Congress has been in power for all this time, since 1994. But its own internal dynamics are complicated, but the opposition to the ANC is often fierce, both from other political parties, but also from civil society organizations. In fact, former President Jacob Zuma, who was at the receiving end of massive opposition, including from opposition around state capture, often complained that he's the elected president of the country, and yet he seems unable to rule because the courts and civil society organizations are able constantly to second guess his decision making. So from that point of view, South Africa is fairly robust. Yesterday was an interesting experience. An opposition political party, the Economic Freedom Front, called for what they call the national stay away to try and sort of close the economy for a day to demonstrate their authority. There were sort of worries of violence breaking out and of looting. In fact, the day was very, very peaceful. EFF turned out that it was hardly able to deliver large crowds at all. Very, very small turnout for its protests. But what was interesting is that there was never a question of the right of the EFF to protest, never. So that right was absolutely respected. Instead, what the government did, for the first time actually ever, was a huge police turnout. So the police were present on the streets. From the reports that I've seen, they were pretty well behaved. There was an incident in the inner city of Johannesburg where the police seemed to break up an EFF demonstration in a fairly robust way, but I don't think there was any sense that no one was hurt or anything like that. And it sounds as if they were acting within the boundaries of the law. But generally speaking, the police acted within the law. The protesters acted within the law. The army, which was also on call, acted within the law. So yesterday was actually a remarkably peaceful day, and many people were saying that they haven't felt so safe in South Africa for a very long time, precisely because it was such a large police deployment in the country. So I think from that point of view, it does sound that South Africa is in a different place to Kenya. Our democracy is much more robust and perhaps less delicate than it is in Kenya. But there's one caveat to all of that. Mm-hmm. We are going into a period now where the African National Congress is clearly in decline. There's a real possibility that it'll fall below 50% in the next election, which means it will not be able to rule on its own, have to rule in coalitions. We're in a phase of quite complex and turbulent coalition politics in South Africa. So there is a question mark over whether the ANC will be able to come to terms with no longer being a ruling party, but merely being one party amongst lots of other parties contesting for power. So that question we haven't tested that yet, and that's where we're heading, and that's going to be fairly exciting, I can say, also quite worrying and nerve-wracking times ahead.
Right. When it comes to matters of the opposition confronting the government, there's usually a talk of sometimes called conspiracy, but there's usually a talk of external factors. And do you think that could be also the case, seeing that 5 African countries yesterday participated in mass actions, and these were all also around the same theme, the cost of living, and all happening on the same day? Could we point to external factors, or is that just plain old conspiracy?
It's a fascinating coincidence. I must be honest, I wasn't aware of it, so thank you for bringing that to my attention. I'll look at that. There's a very great paper by an American scholar of Indian origin, Vijanti Rao, and she did a whole lot of work on what she called simultaneity, the coincidences of events across the world, and she drew some very interesting connections. I would be surprised, to be honest, if there was any planning or any coordination between these events across these countries, especially as they're related to the EFF protest. If you mean a hidden hand in something conspiratorial and nefarious, I would be surprised. If there was some kind of coordination between an EFF planning committee and others, it would suggest to me a very great degree of thinking of South Africa outside of South Africa's borders. So I'd be surprised. I would be happily surprised by that. My guess is that it was a coincidence, at least as it relates to events in South Africa.
All right, great. You, in 2022 October, you published a very interesting opinion piece here on the Sunday Times. If China can make corruption work in its favor, why not South Africa? I've not been able to go through the whole piece behind the paywall, but I'd love to know, how did China make corruption work for itself, and how can Kenya, South Africa, and other nations also make it work?
Yeah, the piece is a little, it's not tongue-in-cheek, but it was an attempt to try and push back against some of the discourses in South Africa and on the continent more generally, that the overwhelming problem in our countries is corruption. So I tend not to believe so. I think that our institutions and our leaders are not especially corrupt relative to the rest of the world. And as it turns out, when you look at the situation in China, of which in South Africa there's a real preoccupation with China. The current leadership look to China as a political model, but they're especially fascinated by its experience of delivering long-term economic growth, high-speed growth, but also delivering infrastructure in a fairly remarkable way. So the Chinese example is very, very present in South Africa. I'm not sure that's the case in Kenya. But when you look at the Chinese example, what you'll find is, what the literature says, and what academics and public policy people will tell you, is that the Chinese civil service is very capable on the one hand. On the other hand, it's monumentally corrupt. There is a very famous book which came out, it's about 10 years ago now, called The Gilded Cage by Yun Yun Ang. She's from Singapore. And what she describes, she's got this whole model of what she calls unbundling corruption. And her argument essentially is that the Chinese civil service is monumentally corrupt. What's interesting about the book, and this was the link into South Africa, is that she compares China to lots of countries, including South Africa, and what she finds is that Chinese corruption is similar to South African corruption. I won't go into the details there. What she argues is that in China, that corruption has helped facilitate development and growth. So the Chinese corruption, which is massive, ironically enough, has been an instigator or helped facilitate massive growth and massive development. In South Africa, it hasn't been the case. There has been massive corruption, but it hasn't been facilitated for growth and development. And I was trying to understand why. The difference, I think, is that in China, the civil service is corrupt, but it's also highly capable. Whereas in South Africa, the civil service, actually the civil service is not so corrupt, but the civil service is not so capable and is corrupt as well. So I think a lot has to do with those questions which I was raising right at the beginning of our conversation around institutional capacity, institutional design, especially as it relates to the civil service.
Right. Superb. And the deep pockets of China are appreciated across Africa. Their presence in Kenya is probably as big as it is in South Africa. And I was having a look at their investment. Last year, China replaced the United States as Africa's second largest trading partner. And these figures show that right after Europe, Chinese investment in Africa tops $9 billion. How should we make of what should we make of China's surging interest in Africa?
Well, of course, commercially, it's an enormous opportunity. Seems to be lots of competition currently going on. China, America, obviously, there's Russian involvement. There's even Turkish interest as well, growing interest. In South Africa, Chinese investment is not especially high, except in certain areas. We still South Africa's largest trading partners are the European Union and the US, which of course raises all sorts of questions in South Africa because our foreign policy is very strongly directed towards China, but also increasingly, as you might know, towards Russia. South Africa remains, in the language of the government, non-aligned in relationship with the war with Ukraine. We recently were involved in the naval maneuvers with Russian warships outside of Simonstown in South Africa. So kind of very close relationships with Russia. So, and yet economically our ties are in another direction. So in South Africa, there's all sorts of tensions around this. But I think China's played a very clever role in this regard. It hasn't tied its investments to notions of good governance or an anti-corruption agenda. It's been much more friendly or much more open-minded in relationship to the conditions of its investment. Although having said that, its investments are still quite commercially unambiguously need to be profitable. In South Africa, Chinese investment has a much more has a rockier. There's been a rockier tendency in South Africa. Chinese companies were heavily implicated in state capture, especially in the rail industries. Some of the huge corruption around state capture related to our national railway company, which bought at the most exorbitant prices Chinese locomotives. So Chinese companies in this regard have been, and China more generally, have been implicated in that period, in that experience in South Africa. So there is some cloud over China in that regard.
All right. Great. Thank you very much for those, of course, insights into various issues that are playing across democracies in Africa. How does the role of the New South Institute in strengthening these delicate democracies, what kind of impact are you looking to achieve, and how have you been doing that so far?
Yeah, so I think this conversation, hopefully, at least as I'm talking and realizing more and more, that the complexities and challenges in our context in South Africa, in Southern Africa, in Kenya, East Africa, West Africa, are enormous. The institutional challenges of dealing with the kinds of things that we've been discussing today. We think that one of the key ways of negotiating or navigating these very, very complex situations is by building the prestige and the capability of public policy thinking, public policy analysis. And that's really what the New South Institute is trying to do. We're trying to elevate the prestige and the capacity of public policy analysis in South Africa, in the region and across the continent. We're trying to link up with other think tanks on the continent, but elsewhere in the world. We're participating in London, for example, in the On Think Tanks conference, which is this huge global network of think tanks. We're part of. We're hopefully joining the Southern Voice, which is another network of global think tanks from the global south, to build these communities of think tanks to elevate the prestige of public policy, but also so that we can start developing concrete solutions to some of these very, very difficult challenges which we have. How, for example, to better insulate the Kenyan Electoral Commission from political interference, how to manage the electricity crisis in South Africa. These sorts of concrete questions require concrete answers, but the answers often lie in a deep understanding of our histories, of institutions, and of the politics, which we cannot just take off the shelf from best practice experience coming from the global north. So we need to find solutions to our problems based on our own histories and our own experiences, and by learning from those around us. And that really is what the New South Institute is trying to do. And I think what we are beginning to achieve. We're doing a lot of work on migration, civil service reform, security reform, policing, and intelligence, a lot of work on welfare reform, and as I keep saying, a lot of work on trying to think the Eastern European experience in relationship to the post-colonial experience. And there the connections are fascinating.
Right, and of course, I'm sure some of these reports and research evidence and the results that you receive from what you're doing, it's stuff that we can read on your site and also on the newsletter.
Absolutely, and all our stuff is available for free off our website and in various other formats. We're publishing it academically a lot. We try to put that out on free platforms as well. All our reports are available. More and more of our work is international and comparative. Alan Hirsch, who heads up a migration program, for example, they've just finished some major work looking at migration dynamics in East Africa, working with Kenyans. We've got part of our team is Kenyan. That work will come out soon. I think you'll be fascinated to read it and to cover it. It looks at migration patterns across Africa comparatively. It finds, for example, which is probably not such a big surprise to Kenyans, but the largest movement of Africans is not out of the continent. It's rather between African countries themselves, of which Kenya, of course, is a key site of migration, both inwards and outwards. Right. Of course, South Africa is as well. So all of this is available for free on our website. Please have a look at it.
Right, thank you very much. And I'll be looking forward to that report, especially, and discussing it here on Biashara Tuesday with my other guests who will be here as experts. No, it's kind of hard to not discuss the electoral process when we're talking about democracy, and I think this is the last bit of this conversation, and I'd like to hear your input on this. The United Nations reports that Africa currently has the greatest number of countries that have democratic governments since 1960s, and of course we can't. This is far from accurate to call the continent a place of free and fair elections. If we can borrow a leaf from the mass actions yesterday in Kenya and Nigeria, to be very specific, the key issues there as well were free and fair elections, a lack of free and fair elections in the previous rounds. Is this something that we can get to have soon? From reading the statements on the New South Institute, you believe that people with passion can change the world by building democracies and capable governments. Is it possible to get people with passion who can also ensure free and fair elections across democracies in Africa?
Well, I do think that a lot of things are possible with commitment and with passion. The question of free and fair elections, of course, is a very tricky one, and it often relates to not just the design of those institutions, but the larger political economy of elections and politics in countries. South Africa does set an interesting example in this regard. We're a fairly troubled country at the moment. We've had a last decade of great difficulty. It hasn't ended quite as quickly as we expected in 2018. So those challenges continue, and things are looking quite difficult. But from a democratic point of view, South Africa remains fairly robust. Our elections are free and fair. They're fiercely contested. I think there's something in that model there around for other countries. More important though, or as important as the elections though, it's the quality of the legislative environment and the parliaments. And this is where we're doing a lot of work on parliamentary reform. How does one build the institution of parliament, over and above the party political contestation, build the institution of parliament so that it can play its role in a democracy more effectively? One of the challenges in South Africa is that even though we've had this robust democracy, robust elections, we've had a fairly weak parliament. So parliament itself has not played its democratic role effectively. And this was one of the findings, for example, of the state capture inquiry, that the parliament itself had not lived up to its constitutional responsibilities to hold the executive to account. I think these are difficult challenges, but I think they're solvable. It's possible to design the institutions in such a way that they can't be captured or gamed by political parties. So I'm quite optimistic in all these areas that there are institutional solutions in many cases to some of these glaring problems. And this is why I think it's so important that the field of public policy is elevated in our context in South Africa and across the African continent and East Africa, but also that we start building the institutions to do the hard work to answer those questions in our local context. And that's very much what the NSI is trying to do, both in South Africa but across the African continent. So look out soon for an NSI office in Nairobi potentially. That I would love.
All right, thank you very much. That is Mr. Chipkin, who's the director of the New South Institute in Johannesburg. A very important conversation we're having there on democracy in Africa, and of course what the citizens and the governments can do together to build an effective and accountable institutions. Working on government and public action, strengthening delicate democracies is what they're doing over at the New South Institute. Thank you very much for creating time for us. Very early morning over at Johannesburg, but we are hoping that maybe sometime if you are here in Kenya physically, we can get to have this conversation, and also maybe for the various parts of research, policy making that you are doing, we can have a conversation as well.
We would love it.
All right.
Yep. Super.
All right.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, have a good one. Biashara Tuesday is now taking a very short break, and then we're back with more on business. Continue staying tuned. More of these hard-hitting conversations are coming to you. If you have any questions, please send them to us at KUTV Kenya. SMS/WhatsApp numbers here. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Ivor Chipkin. I'm the director of the New South Institute. We're a practically minded organization that works on building and supporting government and public institutions, especially in what we call the New South, those areas of the world dealing with the legacy of state capture and corruption, with authoritarian and autocratic rule, with fragmentation in societies and potentially even civil war situations. Some of us at the New South Institute have played an important role in interrupting state capture in South Africa. We believe that 30 years of democratic rule in South Africa as a post-colonial situation provides important lessons both for going forward in South Africa, of building institutions and creating administrations better able to deliver services. But we think there are also lessons for other places in the world, especially in countries similar to South Africa in the New South. We think this is especially important in the current situation where democracies really are on the back foot, where authoritarian and autocratic models of governance have renewed prestige, especially in the global south. In all the work we do, we take an institutional perspective. We are focused on developing practical practical solutions to the major policy challenges in the countries in which we work. We work in several areas. We have a great expertise in dealing with and understanding state capture and corruption, work which has gathered and garnered large interest from around the world and increasingly from the Balkans and from Eastern Europe. We have a great expertise in civil service reform, in understanding what needs to happen, but also potentially how to do it. We work on bringing intelligence and police agencies under civilian and democratic control. We work on the government of migration. We work on welfare reform. And in all of this work, we work comparatively, building relationships with institutions doing similar kinds of work elsewhere in the New South. We've given a lot of thought to our name, the New South Institute. For a South African organization, the term evokes an older term, the New South Africa, with the promise of dealing with the legacy of apartheid within the framework of a constitutional democracy. Of course, the term evokes the notion of the global South, referring also to an older term, the Third World, both as a geography but also as an emancipatory project. We think the term also refers to the BRICS. And with it the promise of thinking the post-colonial experience in relationship to the post-socialist experience. In this way, we are building a vibrant and innovative intellectual community with the view of developing practical solutions for institution building and the work of government institutions in South Africa and elsewhere in the New South.
tunaweza kuanzisha miradi yetu ambayo ingetusaidia kubadilisha maisha ya wazazi wetu.
Kwa vijana wenzangu, wengi walio wana kazi, lakini ikiwa sisi wenyewe tutajiamini, tunaweza kujiajiri wenyewe.
Afrika kwa kweli tuna mahitaji ambayo ukiyasuluhisha unaweza kuathiri watu kwenye bara hili
bila uoga. Watu huwa na uzalishaji zaidi, wanajawa na ujasiri, wanakuwa wabunifu na wanakuwa wenye maarifa.
Niliamua kuacha kazi, hata kama sitafanikiwa, nitakuwa nimejaribu, nitakuwa najua haiwezekani.
Hakuna kitu cha ajabu hapa. Kila anayepata ufanisi hufanya kazi usiku na mchana.
Kitu kitakusukuma na kuwezesha kupata maarifa ambayo hukuwa nayo.
Tunajaribu kutengeneza kitu kitakachopita mipaka ya nchi hii.
Ikiwa unataka kubadilisha ulimwengu, anza na nyumbani.
Hapo kama tia nyama kwani nipe bia.
Da, maisha ni haya mwanaume ali. Da, sielewi yani hata neno moja. Yani tunasikia maboko likolo. Yani ukiniangalia tu huu mwamba huyu anafiti sehemu fulani. Wewe inakaa. Without your love, I can't move on. Yo, that's your boy Rhino the Don. Keep watching and listening to KUTV.
Vitu ambavyo kwamba tukiingia na mwezi mtukufu Ramadhani, mwezi kama huu utafurahia katika mazingira yetu, na wewe mwenyewe pia utafurahia katika mwezi kama ule. Mkono wa kulia usijue mkono wa kushoto kilichotolewa kwa mkono wa kulia. Utoe kwa roho safi, utoe kwa ikhlasi, uwasaidie mayatima, uwasaidie maskini.
مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك.
I'm a freshman in Kenyatta University. This is all what I've heard about campus. Campus is full of freedom.
Ni cumulative.
Mchezo hiyo ili kutoka gani kwani?
I'm a fourth student and I mostly hang out at shopping center. I'm a arboretum, and what I tell first years is it's never too late to start being serious.
To the Church O'Clock. I'm your host, Esther Becky.
And my name is DJ Tero.
We start you off with a word of prayer and get you started with a live transformational worship experience. And have our minds renewed by the word of God on the word segment.
And not forgetting new music za hii wiki, yani ndakuwa bado nawapatia pale wasanii wamekuwa kiwakali. So make sure manzo tune in because zitakuwa zina flow pia pale mixes kwa wingi, yani zitakuwa zina come through, and pia performance yani from our gospel artist hapa on Gospel Art
from 7 to
10 a.m. only on KUTV.
Focus on Health is a show that creates awareness on matters health and informs you on various diseases, their causes, treatment, prevention, coping, and support. So join me, Bari Michelle, every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. only on KUTV. You can also follow us on our social media platforms at KUTV Focus on Health on Facebook and also on YouTube, and Health Focus on Instagram, because your health is your wealth. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Maelfu na maelfu ya wahamiaji wakiwa na watoto kutoka nchi za Amerika ya Kati wanaendelea kuwasili kwenye mpaka kati ya Marekani na Mexico.
But folks are going. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Ni habari kutoka pembe zote duniani.
Pepopa si vuguvugu. Pepopa ni idea.
Sazidi ananyonya, hanyonyi vizuri, anakuwa hayuko comfortable.
jeshi la Jamhuri ya Kidemokrasia ya Kongo linapambana na waasi wa ADF.
Kwa sasa wanatoa wito kwa mashirika, makampuni na vilevile vituo vya uchukuzi.
Mambo mengi yatakwenda kama yalivyopangwa.
Hapa ni kuna mmoja wa viongozi wa chama cha wavuvi katika eneo hili.
Zaidi tunajaribu kuwapa chanjo ili ina boost ama inanyanyua kinga ya mwili, ndio inaenda kupelekea kupambana na virusi.
Ni Duniani Leo, Jumatatu mpaka Ijumaa, moja kwa moja kutoka VOA Swahili, Washington DC.
Okay, easy. Okay, I've stopped.
Out of my life.
And lose Nambi? How did I get myself into this mess?
What is going to be a problem? Then you will have to pay me every single shilling.
Lola is an app that gives you a chance to watch videos, listen to audios, and read articles wherever you are for free. Motivational stories, dramas, campus life, technology, lifestyle, adventure, sports, academics, jobs, entertainment, and more. Download Lola now on Play Store. All you need, you got Lola.
Kipindi hewani ni mitindo ya kipwani. Kama ilivyo kipindi hiki kinahusu nyimbo za tarab, chakacha, midwara, midundiko, bila kusahau mapishi. Ambao ndio uti wa mgongo wa pwani ya Afrika Mashariki.
Jamani, swahibu zangu mliopo maskani, hatuonani wenzangu, najua mwanitamani.
Hapa KUTV, nahodha mwendesha chombo cha baharini, yani ua linalonukia na kuvutia waridi tamu.
How family has democracy taken root in Africa. Welcome back to Biashara Tuesday. We just came off a conversation with the director of the New South Institute in South Africa, based in Johannesburg. He's just had us get a perspective from his angle on exactly how we can strengthen delicate democracies, which is calling all democracies across Africa delicate democracies. Remember, a United Nations report here shows that Africa has currently the greatest number of countries with democratic government. And as I said there, if you watch the interview, it is far from accurate to call the continent a place of free and fair election. Democracy has a foothold in the nation. It's more than just a toehold, even if the director there told us that it's a delicate democracy all across. Over the last couple of years, we've seen Kenya, Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Guinea, Mauritania, Tunisia, South Africa, all, of course, engaging in matters of dispute, disruption, fraud charges, and claims of stolen victories. Then the question becomes that are there democratic practices, but is it more than democratic practices? Is there implementation and enforcement of these democratic practices, and how can we realize progress into the future? So if you missed that conversation, we'll be uploading it on YouTube, where you can get to see his views on various issues, including the mass actions yesterday and also the surge of China in Africa, the interest of China in Africa, and how does this balance out with democracy and matters of politics. Check them out as well on Twitter, the New South Institute, and the director himself has an account there, iChipkin, and you can see his breakdown even from yesterday's national shutdown in various countries and also across other issues of governance and democracy. A very interesting conversation we had there, and we'll be following it up with Top Talent Agency and two very interesting people are joining me on set this morning to have us a look at how you can turn yourself from invisible to invincible. Isabel Donadio is the founder of Top Talent Agency, and David Fagan is an international speaker and award-winning publicist. They are residents of Phoenix, Arizona in the United States, and they'll be here on Biashara Tuesday to tell us, of course, how you can turn around your situation, be it in business, be it in your career, or even as an individual. Thank you for tuning in. Now we are going to have a look at the news updates from your world, especially developments from yesterday, heated developments from yesterday in the world of politics and also business, and then culminating it to this morning and see how that is informing the flow of business into the next few days. So don't go too far. Those news updates are coming to you in a second. Maseno University, who is reportedly was shot yesterday during these protests, and these are images, according to a comment here from Ojwang Mariam. Again, these are images that you will not see in the media. Next time, kama kuna maandamano and you're not interested, then just stay at home. No matter how much you cry or champion for justice, a dead person cannot be brought back to life. So continue sending in your comments. I'll be reading your reactions as well as we go on with the show. In order to have their demands met, the opposition leader Raila Odinga announced that the coalition will hold its anti-government protests every Monday. The former Prime Minister noted that the demonstrations will continue from Monday next week until the coalition gets what it wants. Odinga also condemned what he termed as police brutality, adding that the protests were peaceful and in line with the Constitution. He also condemned the arrest of Azimio leaders, citing that they will hold the president and the police commander responsible for their security and safety. Still with Azimio, Raila Odinga led the long-anticipated 20th March anti-government protests in Nairobi County, traversing various constituencies. The opposition leader maintains that they will go on and on until their grievances are met. Among them, the cost of living, including restoring subsidies that existed prior to the Kenya Kwanza regime, refusal to halt the process of reconstituting the electoral body IEBC, among others. Okumu Modachi tells us how the day's events occurred in the country's capital.
What the public has been holding their breath for a day to reckon finally arrived. The Azimio planned mass action today came with itself 5 clear demands, including reporting President William Ruto to International Criminal Court ICC, opening of IBC servers, the installing of the Cherera 4, reduction of cost of living, among others.
Kwanza, gharama ya maisha imepanda sana, wananchi wanaumia. Sawa. Pili, Bwana Ruto tangu ashika hatamu ya utawala ameleta ukabila mingi sana kwa utawala katika taifa letu.
The opposition leader Raila Odinga, who led the Azimio demos, maintained his stance against Kenya Kwanza government declaring anti-government protest every Monday, saying that mass action witnessed today was just the beginning of what he termed as fight for justice. The Azimio Brigade were earlier denied access to the KICC grounds in Nairobi Central Business District. From Serena Hotel, maneuvered their way to Eastlands areas of Isili, Kamukunji and Mathare to address their supporters. Arrest, tear gas, vandalism and a cat-and-mouse game between the police and the demonstrators characterized the day-long Azimio demonstrations, with the police barricading the roads leading to the CBD, a situation that brought Kenya's capital, Nairobi, to a standstill. The arrest saw National Assembly Minority Leader Opiyo Wandayi, MP for Malindi Amina Mnyazi, Leafy Senator Stewart Madzayo and 3 other Azimio leaders behind bars, later freed on 50,000 Kenya shillings police cash bail. With Odinga's mega demonstrations today bringing Kenya's capital Nairobi to a standstill, what will transpire in the not too distant future remains a puzzle to the public. Whether the President William Ruto's government will give in to Azimio demands or defy the escalating protests. Kumu Modaki for KUTV.
All right, now still with Azimio la Umoja One Kenya, the planned demonstrations were held in various counties across Kenya, with Nairobi and Kisumu topping the list. Here's Edward Nyamu with a breakdown of that.
It was not business as usual in Nairobi County as Azimio supporters took to the streets as it was expected. In the morning hours of the day, things seemed to be calm, but as the day unfolded, chaos erupted between protesters and police officers, with some of protesters being arrested. According to Bungoma residents, although they support the complex issues addressed by Azimio One Kenya team, the difficult economic times could not allow them to involve themselves in the ongoing demonstrations, for they have to hustle to feed their families.
Ningekuwa niingie kwa maandamano, lakini ile maisha imekuwa gharama, hata ile fare ya kuingia town imekuwa ni shida. Kitu ningependa kuomba His Excellency the President William Samoei Ruto waongee na mheshimiwa His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga waelewane, sababu kutoelewana kwao kumeleta matatizo mengi na kunaendelea kuharibu hii uchumi wanasema.
Additionally, in Kisumu County, residents of Unguja blocked Busia Highway in protest of the arrest of Unguja Member of Parliament Opiyo Wandanyi. The demonstrators marched to Unguja Police Station and later took their protest to Rigega Trading Center along the International Highway. Several youths took advantage of the situation to erect illegal toll stations where the few motorists who risked to have their vehicles on the road had to bribe their way out of the roadblocks. However, the planned demonstrations failed to take off in Kisii, although police officers were deployed at key government installations and premises to deal with any eventuality.
Tumetarajia kupata watoto wengi warudi shuleni, lakini hatukuwapata vizuri sababu wameogopa kidogo juu ya hii mambo ya maandamano.
The planned demonstrations are expected to take place every Monday till the government lowers the cost of living. This is according to Azimio leader Raila Odinga.
All right, now looking at the flow of business. Following the Azimio mass protest that started yesterday, business at the Nairobi CBD came to a standstill as the protest escalated beyond control. The main streets inside the CBD remained deserted, with most of the traders closing up their shops in fear of their properties being destroyed. Routes leading to the CBD were also blocked by the police in an effort to contain the protests. Ruth Wanjiru was on the ground and filed this report.
Business owners and traders around the CBD are today counting losses following the Azimio protest that took center stage in the heart of the city. Most businesses, including supermarkets, were seen to be closed, while busy streets were left almost deserted. Roads leading to the CBD were mostly blocked by the police, with no public or private vehicle allowed to enter the city. According to Kimani, a boda rider, business today wasn't running as usual, a situation he blamed on the demonstrations.
Generally, leo kujakuwa na biashara. Aso mimi ufanya deliveries. But spana leo kujakuwa na biz kabisa. The reason being maandamano.
Kimani also added that it's important for the president and the opposition leader to come to an agreement for the sake of the country's economy, which is already at a bad state.
President aite baba waongee, wasikizane tu angalau ndio tukue safe. Watu wengine tuna live hand to mouth. So kukiwa hivi surely tuko na shida. Tukiwa hivi watu wengine itabidi tu tuende ushagu.
Peter, who is a business owner at the CBD, noted that his business did not make any sales today, as according to him, the day was a holiday set aside for the demonstrations. According to Peter, the protests are meant to bring the government to account as well as to decry the cost of living.
You say, no, today you've closed. It's a holiday. Baba said, not going to work
Monday 20th, public holiday, so we have to adhere to that.
Among the businesses affected by the protest include the public transport, supermarkets, hotels, and any other business operating around the heart of the city.
As the Azimio protests continue, businesses around the CBD remains closed. The question of whether businesses will go back to usual depends on whether the opposition and the government will come at a common ground. Ruth Wanjiru for KU TV.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has urged opposition leader Raila Odinga to call off the ongoing protests. Gachagua, while speaking at the port of Mombasa as he flagged off relief food, said the country has lost an estimate of 2 billion Kenyan shillings due to the mass action. The DP, however, assured that the government will provide adequate security to ensure no property is destroyed during the demonstrations.
The second in command, Right Honorable Rigathi Gachagua, has pleaded with the Azimio One Kenya leader Raila Odinga to call off the ongoing protest in the country. This is after chaos erupted in different parts of the country, with police officers and protesters battling out, particularly at the capital of Nairobi, where many protesters turned up.
We want to ask those who are organizing demonstrations, those who are organizing chaos, those who are organizing mayhem, to be decent people. They cannot ask the children of poor people to get involved in violence when their own children are in safety in the East African Legislative Assembly in Arusha. It is not fair, it is not right. If they are so persuaded that people need to go to the streets and cause chaos and mayhem, they should ask their children to be in the forefront.
Additionally, according to Gachagua, the country has lost 2 billion due to the ongoing Azimio mass actions in Nairobi, adding that the mass actions will reverse the gains made by the government in reviving the economy. Gachagua has, however, assured Kenyans that the government will provide adequate security to ensure no property is destroyed during the demonstrations.
As a result, this morning, because of lack of business in the CBD, the country has lost almost 2 billion shillings in terms of business. And this is money that should have been circulating in the economy. We want to urge these people to consider this afternoon to call off the chaos, the mayhem, the intimidation, because what they are doing is destroying our economy.
Speaking when he received and flagged off 25,000 metric tons of wheat and 16,000 metric tons of sorghum from Ukraine at the port of Mombasa, Gachagua said the mills would keep children from drought and famine-affected areas in school, as well as secure their future.
We want to thank the grain bag handlers for very efficient way you are handling the grain, and we want to urge you to continue.
Gachagua has pleaded with Azimio to reconsider the mass action for the forthcoming weeks and asked Kenyans to ignore the calls for demonstrations. Edward Nyamo, KUTV.
Now, President William Ruto has insisted that his government will not condone, neither reward any impunity in the country. This follows the Azimio mass action protest that took place in the country yesterday. The president was speaking in State House, Nairobi, where he presided over the swearing-in of Solicitor General Shadrack Mose.
Today being the day of opposition leader Raila Odinga and his followers to hold the major awaited Azimio rally, President William Ruto, on his part, has witnessed the swearing-in ceremony of Solicitor General Shadrack Mose in State House following his appointment last week by the president. The president has mentioned that he has confidence in Mose, that he has the requisite experience, understanding and knowledge to support and provide leadership in the office of the Attorney General.
I am confident that you have the requisite experience, understanding and knowledge to support and provide leadership in the office of the Attorney General as the administrative head of that office. Having served in other capacities and having worked as a lawyer and a public servant as a member of parliament, I'm confident that you are adequately prepared.
The president has, however, tasked Mose to ensure that all claims billed to government
through the legal process are paid on time, as well as to ensure that the government receives appropriate legal advice.
The second area of attention I would like you and Attorney General to focus is on securing government in terms of the people who take government to court. We have so many court awards against the government of Kenya.
Referring to the right of Kenyans to protest, President Ruto has, however, mentioned that Kenyans must be very careful to ensure that they do not trample on the rights and peace of others.
As a country that believes in the rule of law, there is no greater or lesser person. None of us is above the law. The president is not above the law, and so is every other citizen. So each one of us must, as of a constitution imperative.
President Ruto has also added that Kenya will be governed by the rule of law and everyone must operate within the constitution, insisting that he cannot condone impunity in the country. Caroline Kimwele, KUTV.
All right, away from mass protest, members of the Parliamentary Select Committee on CDF have reiterated that there is need to amend the Act to allow financing of the feeding program in primary schools, among other issues that will improve enrollment in the lower cadre of education. Listening.
Committee Chairman Musa Sirma, who led the Parliamentary Committee members to Embu County to inspect projects and programs by the National Governmental Constituency Development Fund, noted that there was no need to invest billions in school infrastructure, with no pupils attending classes due to hunger and lack of food. NGCDF Chief Executive Officer Yusuf Mbono revealed that the kitty had been allocated an additional Kenya shillings 10 billion for financial year 2023-2024 to make it 54 billion, which he said was calculated as per the Revenue Allocation Act 2.5% of the national government share.
Kutoka hapa Eastern, kutoka Ukambani, maneno ambaye sisi tukiwa kamati ya CDF tunasema enda jenga shule. Kama hakuna watoto kwa shule, shule inajengewa nini?
Members of the committee who visited the county voted to support the amendment of the National Government Constituency Development Fund. Wilson Tobiko, KU TV.
To Bungoma.
All right, remember we will be here to have a conversation with Top Talent Agency. I already teased this conversation earlier on, and also the CEO of NUCAM, also alongside here with me. They're already in the show, so if you have any questions, please be sending them on our social media platforms. I'll be back with that conversation. Don't go too far. Migori County has been urged to partner with Kenya Literature Bureau as a developing partner to improve the education sector in that county. The General Manager of Commercial Services at KLB, Evans Nyachenga, says that the KLB, a government parastatal, is a development partner and an education stakeholder of the Lake Region Economic Bloc.
That's why, as a state corporation, we have a stake in matters education. Recently, we have partnered with several other stakeholders on matters education. Currently, we have a partnership with the Kenya National Examination Council.
So Isabel Donadio, the founder, Top Talent Agency, is here with me, and I have a book, a very interesting one by Michael and Larry. It's A New Calm. We're also going to be discussing about this and how it applies to health and your general calm. Yeah, these troubling times. I think we need to have a calm nation, reduced stress and improvement in performance. So that conversation is coming to you on KUTV Kenya. Remember, we're streaming live on Facebook and also on YouTube. Apart from being on your television sets, you can find us KUTV Kenya Live and KUTV Kenya on Facebook. Tag me on my Twitter handle @Richard_OKENYE. I'll look at your feedback. It is highly valued, and also any questions that you might have, we'll be addressing them as we go on with the show. So let me take that break and then invite my guests for a conversation. Don't go too far. All right, it wasn't going to be that long, it seems, and we are back on air on Twitter. I see a couple of guys who are interacting with us, and I think it's important that I do mention their names. Delani Majola, also watching the show and interacting with us on Twitter. Joang Mariam already sent his feedback and his reactions on the mass protest yesterday. Very interesting reactions there. Jesse Leslie is also tuning in from Kasarani. I see Lapobo, interesting username there on Twitter. Sheldon254 as well tuning in. Tell us where you're watching the show from and what your reactions are on the various discussions that we're having here on the show. Welcome to Biashara Tuesday.
Asante sana.
Yeah, asante sana. I see you've picked a couple of words there. Welcome as well.
Thank you for a trip.
All right. We are going to, of course, have a look at this book and also at Top Talent Agency and what you've been doing. You already told me that you were here last year,
Yes.
November 2022, and now 2023. Exciting things that we're looking forward to. But to our viewers, to get an understanding of who you are and what role you have at Top Talent Agency and also at Newcom. Beginning with you.
Yes, my name is Isabel Donadio. I'm the owner and founder of Top Talent Agency, here sponsoring the Kenya Keynote Tour, where I have brought in some American business owners and entrepreneurs who have dabbled in business and as well as personal and mental health, coming to talk to established businesses as well as students in universities and grade schools to talk to them about the different ways that they can tap into potential American businesses.
All right, that's great. CEO, founder, Newcom.
My name is Jim Poole. Thank you for your attention, your consideration. It's an honor to be here. Richard, thank you. Yes, we were here in November, and we are a client of Top Talent Agency, and their job is to create publicity for companies like ours. My name is Jim Poole, as you know. I'm a 54-year-old businessman out of America, and for the past 14 years, I've served as president and CEO of one of the most powerful neuroscience companies in the world. We are bringing technology to the world to help people downregulate stress without drugs. So considering all the chaos that's happening globally, not just here in Kenya, you've got some geopolitical concerns here, but you also have stress on a daily basis, the chronic stress related to food insecurity. So we're here to bring this technology to help the population of Kenya, the beautiful people that we've met, to simply lay off the drugs, lay off the alcohol, manage their stress so that they're liberated from that aspect of everyday life and they can achieve their goals.
Right. Top Talent Agency, maybe just coming back to you there. How do you identify the top talent?
We identify the top talent by people who have not only something to say, but have established proof and evidence of the kind of works that they're trying to accomplish. It's one thing to be a dreamer and have some idea of what it is you want to do versus a doer, which are the kind of people that we work with that are actually going out there and making a difference. They're finding the clients, they're finding the people that they can work directly with to help either improve their business or improve their lives in some form of manner.
All right, that's great. And is this individuals plus businesses as well?
We mostly work with business owners,
Okay.
people who have an established means of generating their own income, but we help them with getting their book done, getting them in media, and if they are looking to have their own show as well,
Right.
we help them establish that.
Okay, I think we'll have a discussion about that separately, just for my own individual progress.
Absolutely.
Now, coming back to you, Jim, how do you, work with top talent in this regard?
Their mission is to help us create publicity. You know, you can have a great idea, you can have a great company, you can have a great purpose, great mission, but if nobody knows about you, you're not going to have great success. So their job, and my trust in them, is to allow them to go out and bring viewership to what we're trying to do, so that we can educate. This isn't about selling anything to anybody. This is about educating people so you can make an informed decision. And David and Isabel do that in great ways, and they're honorable, they're integrous, and I've been all over the world with them, actually, and I trust them implicitly with our business, and we've seen a lot of accelerated growth from the publicity that they've helped us achieve.
Right, great. You were here in the last tour last year?
Yes, I was.
How was that for you?
Life-changing would be an understatement. In fact, my wife is with me again this trip, and about halfway through our trip last time, it was about 11 days, it became intuitively obvious to me that my future is in Kenya. So of all the things I've done, I've been running businesses in America for 29 years. I've run this company for 14. We expect to sell this enterprise in about 3.5 years. And I didn't know what I wanted to do afterwards. Now I know what I want to do. We're going to probably build a house here in Nairobi and bring this type of technology to the 55 million Kenyan people and take care of them for the future.
Right. You mentioned your age there earlier.
Yes.
54 years.
Yes.
Is this management of stress also one of those things that has helped you stay so young and with a glowing skin?
Do you like this glowing skin? This is called no stress.
That's not a 54-year-old
and lots
face.
of water. Yes. So stress. Do I have stress? Of course I have stress. I run a $100 million U.S. neuroscience company around the globe. I have 52 medical advisors, thousands and thousands of customers all over the world. We work with the U.S. Department of Defense, the military, cancer patients, doctors, pilots, celebrities. We have employees all over the world. We have 108 stockholders. We have a lot of reasons to be stressful. I also have 3 beautiful children, 21, 18, and 16, and my wife. When you can manage stress and you liberate yourself from all this worry and anxiety and fear, it liberates you. So you'll notice, just from my skin, I don't deal with stress, and I haven't dealt with stress in 14 years. So I tell people, I think like a monk and live like a capitalist. And that juxtaposition really helps me achieve good things in business, because in business there's always pressure, and pressure brings expectation. And when your expectations aren't met, you change your behavior. I just show up. I prepare for nothing. I show up for everything. And that way of doing business, you'll notice there's a presence about me. There's no intention. There's no expectation. I'm just here to share the goodwill of what can happen with great technology to help people.
All right, that's a really great approach of using technology to sort your stress and also help you progress forward in business. This also being your second time in Kenya, how was it like last year, and what different things can we expect in this tour?
What I love so much from the first visit that has spilled into this second visit is that everyone here is just so welcoming and so kind and generous with their time and their questions, and being very receptive to strangers essentially coming into their space and sharing them with different ideas and challenging them a little bit. One of the differences, though, is that as we come into these spaces and we have, the social proof of our first visit, now we have a little bit more credibility. So now when we are asked different kinds of questions, we can get a bit more personal. It's not very surface level. Now we can get to the nitty gritty of what is it that you're trying to accomplish, and how is it that I can give you the right information to now point you in a better direction, versus just keeping everything on surface level. Then we can't really do too much, but now we can.
That's great. So are you reaching out to more people this year, and how is that going to go?
So last year we spoke at Nairobi University, Kisii University, Kisumu, and we spoke here at a television set in Kenyatta. Now we're speaking at more universities, now also high schools, middle schools, and elementary schools. So we've definitely made our presence known, and we're definitely reaching out to more people and getting more eyes and ears on the potential of what their futures can look like by understanding what it is that they're trying to accomplish in their own personal lives.
All right. You've mentioned to me there before you came on air that you've come with American business people, American principles of business. How important is this cross-culture in business? How do you think that's going to improve business on both sides, really?
Yes, it's one thing to bring in one individual that does one kind of business, that can speak on one kind of topic, and you can still get great information from them. But when you bring a diverse group of individuals that tap into different fields, like Jim here, that taps into stress, whereas I focus more on the publishing and publicity. We have two different businesses, but we can speak on several different things. So the more people you bring, the more various topics that can be discussed.
That's great. You've mentioned that, Jim, and I was having a look at your pouch there. Maybe you can hold it up. That's New Calm, and this is a New Calm.
Yes.
Correct. That's a play on words.
Okay.
This is the company.
All right.
So Old Calm would be drugs and alcohol,
Okay.
which are very effective, but they have negative consequences. New Calm is very effective with no side effects.
Okay.
And that book was
Except
authored...
happiness.
Except happiness.
All right.
That book was authored and published by the illustrious Dr. Michael Gallitzer, and the foreword was written by Tony Robbins, a very influential philanthropist and professional growth human being, and the preface was written by a monk. So I challenge people to find a technology where the introduction or forward is written by a nuclear reactor of energy. If you know Tony Robbins, he's go, 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 go. And the preface is written by a Yoganandan monk who trained the Beatles on meditation. They're both using the same technology to drive benefit. But I'd like to expound on the first trip, second trip.
Right.
As a CEO of an international company, we have several beachheads, and we have an established partnership in Vietnam, in China, in Brazil, in Mexico, and Australia. One visit cannot make the impact necessary. So our visit in November was mind-opening, heartfelt, but also the fact that culturally there's a lot of English here, not just Swahili. That helps me as a business person perhaps establish a beachhead here in Kenya. So our second visit is to build upon the first visit, and even when we got here, we arrived Friday night. Saturday morning, we flew to Bungoma, and we lectured to over 100 police officers under the commander, and we visited a hospital. So we're expanding our touch points because, again, if you don't know a technology like this exists, it can't help you.
Right.
But if you understand that there's a 33-year company, 33 years, $41 million of research in a technology that used to be a $6,000 Class 3 FDA medical device, now available in a mobile app for a monthly subscription, that's why we're here, to expand and accelerate the use and give the gift of stress management without drugs. And you know, you guys are going through some political issues today.
Right.
In America, we went through that a couple years ago. We understand the elevation of stress and the divisiveness that stress has. Can you imagine if we just calmed everybody down, we could have dialogue instead of this amplified feeling?
Right.
That's what we're here to provide.
You've just made everyone go calm with that statement.
Yes.
Just that one statement.
You feel the whole studio just go, oh.
Yeah, the whole studio just realize that the energies were way off the roof, yeah?
Yes.
How important is this for a business person now, if we translate it to business? For someone to be calm, to manage stress, fix their sleeping cycle, and all of these things that involve consciousness.
So Richard, you have a really cool job. And there are going to be guests that come in here with intention and high stress. And when they sit down here, you can feel that energy.
Right.
And it's uncomfortable. Stress impacts all of our decision making. It impacts our ability to be successful. It impacts our emotional health, our mental health, and our physical health. So as a business person, if I'm going to engage in business with somebody and they're stressed out, they're distracted, they're angry, they're easily triggered, I'm not going to trust them. I'm not going to engage in business with them. I'm going to thank them for their time, and I'm never going to see them again. So in business, stress is a huge component, and a lot of leaders hold their stress inside, and they drink at night or they do things that are detrimental to them. Also, they take their stress home to their family, and their family doesn't deserve that. So a lot of business leaders we see around the world are feeling like a failure in business and at home because they're mediocre at both, because stress is getting the best of them and they're not sleeping well. So yes, it has a major impact across society, but as a business leader, the more I can manage my stress without drugs, the healthier I am, and the more open I am, the more success I provide to the company and to the shareholders and to the customers.
All right, coming back to you now, as we try and manage our stress levels, you are planning activities, I am guessing, for the next few days. How long is that going to take? Where can people expect you? And what activities do we look forward to being involved in?
Yes, so following our time here in Nairobi, we're actually going to be going to Kisumu and then going to speaking to other universities out there, as well as going to the Manga School for Girls, which is one of the schools that we visited before. We had a wonderful connection with those girls there, so we'll be going back to them, as well as I mentioned earlier, high schools and grade schools. The intentions of us going out and speaking to them is truly just to understand what it is that they're trying to do, different ways that we can sponsor and help these schools in any way that we can. For example, at the Manga School for Girls, where we visited last time, we were able to raise the funds to help them install a permanent water tank inside of there, because we understood that that was one of the needs that they had at that time. So now, when we're trying to go to these campuses, is understanding what their needs are and what are some different ways that we can do. So this trip isn't just to speak to students directly, but also it's a little bit of a philanthropy mission to find different ways that we can not only cultivate and help these students individually, but also on a massive level.
Right, that's a great way there, and maybe to bring it with the intention to relieve stress and help people manage stress. Students are also one of those who are very stressed in the country. Mass protests yesterday also affecting university students. We saw there's one who was involved in a very serious incident over at Maseno University, allegedly shot during this protest. Is there a way also to that Top Talent looks at such scenarios and helps the students manage the various factors that are affecting their studies?
Yes, so when it comes to factors like that, that's where NewCom definitely would come into a massive play, because we are talking to them about stress levels. What are different ways that they can look at situations where instead of coming in at one extreme, you're able to slowly bring them down into understanding what is the thought process that they're trying to do, what is the end goal of certain actions that are being taken. And our goal with Top Talent Agency is to just find different ways for us to involve companies like NewCom and ones like that, to find different ways to help bridge those conversations and make it more normalized of, okay, you're feeling certain things of these stress levels. What are other ways that we can look at that when it comes to their studies, when it comes to their friendships, when it comes to different conversations that they're having?
Right, from invisible to invincible.
Yes.
How do I interpret this now?
From invisible to invincible?
Yes. How do I apply it to, for example, even on an individual level as a presenter? How should I take this and apply it to my day-to-day?
Very
I'll
simple.
leave that question
Very
to
simple.
Okay.
Invisible is how a lot of us feel when we're stressed, when we're filled with anxiety, when we feel insecure, when we feel isolated. That invisible doesn't feel good. When you want to be successful, confidence breeds confidence. Invisible, insecure, scared, fearful, isolated, depressed doesn't breed anything, right? So nobody's going to want to work with that. If we can liberate through a technology like NewCom, but also inspire through experts coming from America to say, this is how you build a successful business. These are the insights, these are the tactics, these are the strategies, these are the areas to be successful in. Or also, we are always looking for talent to hire externally. So as we build a beachhead in Kenya, we will look to hire some of these university students moving forward. So if you can take somebody who's just going through a bad time, they're not always isolated, and change that mindset, they will become invincible as they become successful, because success breeds success, and that success builds confidence, and that confidence builds success. We all know that it's really fun to be around someone that makes us feel better. We all know it's really fun to be around someone who's confident and directs us towards good things. We also know the flip side. When we hang out with someone who's depressed, we never leave that interaction feeling good, right? We take on the depression. So this is a big deal for us, and this is about changing mindset and just throwing out a lifeline to people. Yesterday at Nairobi University, there's a lot of children who were basically saying, hey, I'm struggling. They're not alone. In America, we have 338 million Americans competing for very tough jobs in a very tough market. There's a lot of isolation, there's a lot of depression, there's a lot of medication, and there's a lot of suicidal thoughts all over the globe. This is not, just in Kenya. So we're here to say, hey, you're amazing. You can achieve whatever you like. We're going to help you in many ways through bringing technology. Yesterday, we gifted 1-year subscription to all of our science, which was formerly a $6,000 medical device, to all the students at the Nairobi School of Business.
Nice,
that's our gift to say, here, let us help you in a manner that's easy. Our technology is very easy to use. It used to not be. It's simply delivered on an app. You put earphones in, you select your channel. Hey, I want to not be stressed out. You sit down, 20 minutes later, you come to, you feel amazing, you go about your studies.
Trying to tame that monkey mind. I think it's usually the word they use when it comes to being mindful and meditation. And now, how can people access resources? I'm sure you've mentioned the app. You've mentioned the app there. That's something they can get on Play Store.
www.newcalm.com. You go there, there's a lot of information. We've been educating the masses across the globe for 14 years. As I mentioned, the Department of Defense, the military, veteran community, pilots, doctors, celebrities, professional athletes. We've done over 2 million surgical procedures replacing general anesthesia using what was formerly a Class 3 FDA medical device. Go to the website. You can purchase a monthly subscription for as low as $14.99 USD. And then you would download the app from the Google Play Store. You'd have access to it. You put headphones in, select your channel, and let us do the work for you. 33 years of patented neuroscience in the palm of your hand to help you manage your brain without stress.
All right. For institutions, individuals, and any other person who wants to get to Top Talent Agency or wants to access the resources and what you offer, how can they do that, and where can they access it?
Yeah, so you can go to www.toptagency.com. If you also want to connect with me directly, you can also go to www.isabeldonadio.com. All my social media is there, so you can connect with me. I always check my messages, so I will see you.
Okay. All right, that's a great achievements. Are there achievements that you can highlight so far that you guys have been able to realize during this period, maybe from last year to this year, and even from before?
Yes, so one venture that we are doing is called an anthology book. So every single chapter, a different individual is writing, and through my company, we can also help them do that. Last year, we spoke to a couple of teachers, professors, talking about getting them involved. And so with that, from our first visit, some of them have already gotten involved and already submitted their chapters. But we're always looking for more individuals who have something to say, something that is of benefit, not only for students, but for adults, business owners, people who want to transform from being a dreamer, someone with a good idea, to a doer and someone who is taking action and making a difference.
All right.
And we have seen a lot of success from the November trip.
Okay.
We've inspired a lot of the university kids, a lot of the day school kids. We have given Newcalm to many of them, so they're already starting to use it, and we can see the patterns. We can see the success that they're having. But more importantly, every time we come here is another anchor, and it reinforces that they are valuable, that they do have opportunity. Because, in essence, we are what we think we are. And when we're isolated and confused and insecure, we don't feel that great about ourselves. Therefore, we won't achieve. If we can come, everybody needs help. We all have needed help along the line. And who knows in your life who's been able to hold their hand out and say, here, let me lift you up and help you. That's what we're here to do. So the more we come here, and the more Dominic Obadiah, who's helping us get access to governors and the government and the police and the hospitals to say, hey, there are other opportunities out here for people to be helped, and everybody needs help.
Right, that's great. I like that statement that we are who we are because of what we think, yeah? I think, therefore I am. I think that's how it goes.
Yes.
So the marvels of technology is something I also picked up from our conversation. You're telling me that I do not need to go to the Himalayas or to Tibet so that I attain that sense of calm.
Yes.
You can do that. I'm not saying not to. It'll take you years and years and years of persistent, dedicated practice. Or in 20 minutes, physics, mathematics, and algorithms can take you there. So personally, I like the efficiency of technology, and I don't think I'd look good bald in a monastery. I just don't.
Yeah, with a long flowing dress or something close to that. But yeah, be checking out Newcalm. You can download it and check out the website and see how you can achieve, to improve your performance and reduce stress. One very important comment I saw here at the back from a former yoga monk for 35 years, Brother Craig Marshall, saying, I'm using it every day and find myself becoming more creative and clear, not just less stressed. So it's not just about being less stressed, but also that calm enables you to be creative and innovative, I'm guessing.
Yes, they have a setting on Newcalm as well where it helps you not only be calm or get energized, but also to help you really focus. And something that I've actually personally struggled with growing up is learning disabilities. One of them is called ADHD, or Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, and dyslexia. So 2 different learning disorders. I have them both. So it makes my life very interesting. But with Newcalm in the focus setting, I'm able to sit in one place for a long period of time and really clear my mind and just focus on the task at hand. So it's not just something that is changing your stress levels, but it's also improving the productivity that you're trying to put, whether it's in your studies, whether it's you going about your daily routine or going into your work.
All right. You've talked about the tour, of course, the places that you're going to, Manga School for Girls, you'll be in Kisumu, Kisii, and all of that. Is this an open invite? Can I just pop in? And
Yes,
of course.
You can definitely
You can fly with us tomorrow morning to Kisumu.
Oh, yeah, nice. All right.
Send you the details. You can join us.
Okay, so people in Kisumu or like people in the places that you're going to can also come through to the
Kisii University?
Yeah.
Yes.
Kisii Polytech University, the next 2 days.
Right. Interesting. Kisii is my home ground, so maybe my relatives and friends can get to join in and hear from Top Talent Agency and also from Newcom as well. Maybe a very personal question to end it on a personal note.
Yes.
Why did you decide to go into Top Talent Agency? Why did you decide to go to talent management, authority marketing, and all of the stuff that you do?
I've always had a huge passion for learning people's stories, whether it's why it is that they got into what it is that they did, what situations in their life directed them to the path that they're on, having your own show, being in charge of your own business, being an employee, what happened along the ways in your life that got you to where you are. And I loved being able to find different ways for people to share their stories. So I've gotten to know Jim very well. I've gotten the wonderful opportunity to travel all over the world with you and telling his story, but also for my clients as well, whether it's in a book, whether it's getting them in front of a camera, whether it's them having their own show and having their own platform, because all of us are representing different facets of the world, whether you're coming from a stressful childhood, whether you come from a place where you were given every chance in the world, and you're now trying to give back. Whatever your story is, I love being able to come in and share that. So working with the talent, not only being able to spotlight them, but also spotlight myself in the stories that I have to share as well. So it's definitely paying it forward, but I'm also being able to advance with everybody else.
All right. Are we expecting a session in Kenyatta University now that you're around? Is that today or
Today.
When
It's
is that?
today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Please join us. It's this afternoon, I believe.
Okay.
2 o'clock.
All right, 2 o'clock, Kenyatta University students and the whole fraternity can get to join these two interesting guests.
And can I share one more thing?
Yeah, sure.
So you can actually see our full itinerary at kenya.toptagency.com. So that's www.kenya.toptagency.com. You can see our full itinerary of what we're going to be at next.
All right, that's great. And I'm hoping then in that session there's maybe a 20-minute or 10-minute meditation session, or
I bet you are.
Newcom session.
I bet you are. It's a tease, isn't it? Yes.
All right, I'll be psyched up for that. Let me clear my 2 p.m. calendar today, and then
From 2 to 4, just clear that out.
Right, definitely. Thank you guys for having this conversation with us. Maybe just a call to action to first, I think maybe let's begin with the stress. Now we are having a very difficult period in the country. Mass actions yesterday, political temperatures are rising, the cost of living is stressing everyone. The media is awash with fears of a global recession, and people might be finding it a bit difficult to balance all these bits of information and process it. A call to action on them finding Newcom and also joining you guys on the tour.
It's always important for us to understand that we are a closed loop ecosystem. We have trillions of cells in our body, and we have to understand the power of recovery and sleep. And if we don't give ourselves the opportunity for recovery and sleep, we are never going to perform at our best. And we will fall victim to the food insecurity or the job and the financial pressures or all these global aspects that are feeling like they're applying pressure. But take a step back, take a breath. We're human. We've been through this a lot, many cycles of stress, and we will get through this period as well. But I always say to people, go to www.newcom.com and give yourself the gift of taking care of yourself without drugs in a predictable, reliable fashion, because you need to take care of yourselves so that you can be there for the ones who need you and love you the most, and they need you all the time.
All right. Your call to action?
My call to action is we all have something to learn. We all have something to teach someone else. So definitely please follow us. Come and hear us speak. Come find different ways in which that we can touch your lives and improve upon your lives, or even just find a way for you to take something away and learn it for yourself. So kenya.toptagency.com. Check out our itinerary. Come hear us speak. We want to connect with you.
Right, and if you're in Kenyatta University, you can check that session today, 2 p.m. And the theme there, from invisible to invincible. And you'll be hearing from them, as well as one other who's not on set with us, David, international speaker as well, business trainer and top winning publicist. You can see, as we've portrayed there on the screen, the keynote tour is happening from today and also in other parts of the country where they shall be touring. You've been told where to check out their itinerary. Thank you guys for creating time and having a conversation with me.
Thank you for having us.
I'm hoping we can do it another time, whether on Zoom, whether in person,
Yes.
Continuously seeing where the country and human beings as a race we're heading.
We are here with purpose, passion, and intention to do our best to help take care of you.
All right.
You send us a link, we'll be there.
Yeah, of course. I'm seeing here a comment from Ambassador. I'm assuming AMB is ambassador. That's the comment. Ambassador Dominic Obadiah, top brains from Top Talent Agency and Newcom, watching to the very end. Thank you very much there on the Facebook live stream. On Twitter, I see again more people who are interacting with us. Shameless Guna, thank you for your feedback and tell us where you're tuning in from as well. Shikamaru, Wechuli Eugene with the bushy brows, saying that it's important I be calm. I am a medical student.
Yes.
So I think this is affecting.
This is like a very important field to be very common.
Yeah, so don't be scaring patients out there. Miguel, Migs as well, you're saying you enjoyed the conversation. Cool customer, positive vibes, and good conversation from the guests. Thank you guys for tuning in to Biashara Tuesday on that very important conversation. If you missed any bit of it, we'll be uploading it on our YouTube channels, KUTV Kenya, so that you can get to rewatch and rewatch until you get exactly what you're looking for. Taking that short break, and then I'll be right back with more. Don't go too far.
Welcome to the Newcom family. My name is Jim Poole. I'm the president and CEO of Solid Life Sciences, the neuroscience company that makes Newcom. We often joke, Newcom family is the family you keep. We've been serving humanity for over 20 years. We're thrilled to have you. Why? Because we know we have a technology that can help you. When we are stressed out, and it doesn't matter what the catalyst is, it could be a challenge at work, it could be you're moving, it could be COVID, it could be the death of a loved one. Stress impacts all of us. We're all human. Part of being human is stress. It doesn't matter the external element of stress. What causes the stress response is inconsequential. The physiology of stress is the same. It's an identical physiological response inside of our body. Therefore, anybody, from monks to professional athletes, to the FBI, to pilots, to doctors, to people suffering with chronic disease, everybody can benefit from stress remediation, relaxation, and good sleep. Newcom is here for everybody. Think about how many calories you've burned in your lifetime worrying about things that you never could control, and they turned out to be fine anyway. The central nervous system governs us, protects us, and allows us to stay alive. Its number one goal is self-preservation. Nothing else matters if you're not alive. Okay. When we're stressed out, the central nervous system activates the autonomic nervous system. This area of our brain has a neural circuitry of 40 million years of evolution. It's very sophisticated. It knows how to protect us. As soon as we are stressed, the autonomic nervous system is activated. And what does that mean? It means all of our resources inside our brain and inside our body mobilize to protect us from the threat. Whether it's real or perceived, whether it's inside our head and a thought, insecurity, depression, fear, anxiety, worry, or we're really in physical danger. The stress response is identical. Now, the brain and the body communicate only two manners, chemical messaging and electrical messaging. Newcom uses both channels to slow you down. Well, when we're stressed, our frequency of our brain is amplified, and we're thinking too quickly. Newcom simply slows you down and allows you to do this through biochemistry and physics. You apply a biosignal processing disc to your left wrist. You put an eye mask on so that you're not visually stimulated by light. And most importantly, you're going to listen to music. But underneath the music, you can't hear. We have algorithms in physics slowing down your brain. And we're slowing you down to this space just above deep sleep where your body can get into balance and you can heal, recover, and restore. Everybody can use Newcom. You can use Newcom. Your kids can use Newcom. Your spouse can use Newcom. Your teacher can use Newcom. Your employees can use Newcom. Your employer can use Newcom. Newcom is not the hero on this journey. You are. You're on a journey. Your life's journey. We're simply here as a confidant and a facilitator to help you along the way. But who uses NewCalm? The United States Military, Department of Defense, Special Forces operators, Air Force Special Operations Command, Navy SEALs, the FBI Hostage Rescue Team, Department of Homeland Security, Border Patrol, 49 professional sports teams, 58 UFC fighters, the United States Tennis Association. These people aren't going to use something twice if it doesn't work the first time. They've been habitualizing using NewCalm on a daily basis for up to 11 years. We also have thousands of doctors that use NewCalm, almost 2 million surgical procedures on NewCalm. We work on the whole continuum of life, from monks to cancer patients to celebrity to pilots to the world's top athletes. Trust me, this is one of those rare times where what sounds too good to be true is even better than you think.
We are all seeing the impacts of climate change. In Kenya, for example, the frequency of the floods is becoming more and worse. The amount of people and livestock we're losing.
The level we need to go is the level where the normal mwananchi and also the government stakeholders can uptake these solutions.
Those small acts multiplied by millions of us will help make a difference in the world at the end of the day.
It's just a slight behavior change that we need, and you'll find that it serves us a bit more than you put in. And that's the goal. We want to live a better world than we found. Because at the rate we are going, it's dire.
We will secure the planet for future generations.
What's up, fashionistas? Looking for a show that brings you the latest in the world of fashion, glamour, creativity, and style? Fashion Diaries got you started as we explore street fashion, modeling, runways, red carpet events, and so much more.
Catch me, Ashley, at Sachi as we unlock the greatest fashion events. Keep it locked.
Focus on Health is a show that creates awareness on matters health and informs you on various diseases, their causes, treatment, prevention, coping, and support. So join me, Bari Michelle, every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. only on KUTV. You can also follow us on our social media platforms at KUTV Focus on Health on Facebook and also on YouTube, and Health Focus on Instagram, because your health is your wealth. Stay safe and stay healthy.
knowledge, solution to unanswered questions.
Guidelines to pursuing your rights and repossessing your property, intellectual or material.
This and more only on Law Matters.
Hello everybody! I'm Nana. And I'm Gigi. Welcome to Engine Season 2! The place to find out about the world we live in and the creatures that we share our planet with. Join us on the most exciting adventures across the African continent. See breathtaking wildlife, stunning landscapes, and out of this world technologies. Meet incredible scientists and learn fantastic facts. Explore, discover, be amazed. Be part of the next generation of African change makers. Be a part of Engine, Africa's #1 science discovery program. Yay!
We're learning every day. Engine leads the way.
Technology, science, innovation, ICT and research. These are the ingredients upon which the solutions to the 21st century problems are founded. In a world that is rapidly changing, it's all hands on deck to ensure a balance in all fields of life. Women, young and old, are also in the front line, breaking the glass ceiling, becoming thought leaders in the larger tech space. Not forgetting other societies marginalized. And when the tech Avengers come together, we inch closer to a much safer, efficient, and sustainable world. What we view as a norm in today's advanced world was just an idea, and for nostalgic reasons, we trace back to the iconic days to bring you the retro tech. On Tech Innovation Show, we encapsulate all the pillars of the fourth industrial revolution, decoded in a language, all for one for all. Every Monday at 8:30 as we push the mantra, keep learning something new each and every day. Only on KUTV, a new experience.
Maisha ni haya mwanaume ali. Sielewi yani hata neno moja. Yani tunasikia tu maboko likolo. Yaani ukiniangalia tu huyu mwamba huyu anafiti sehemu fulani. Wewe inakaa. Without your love, I can't move on. Yo, that's my boy Rhino the Don. Keep watching and listening to KUTV.
Biashara Tuesday is back here with the newspapers. I have the Business Daily and the headline: Ruto, Rigathi, Mudavadi get 802 million Kenya shillings for new cars. total state car budget more than doubles to 2 billion Kenyan shillings, and the budget is expected to rise further on vehicles for 50 CASs. The Standard, Raila, no retreat. Opposition leader says there is no retreat or surrender, and that they will press on with the demonstrations against the cost of living every Monday until the government acts, even as leaders condemned police for arbitrary arrests that saw protesters injured. The Daily Nation has a very interesting headline, and it's a bit different from the Standard, and they're calling it Return to Chaos. I don't think I really do agree with it, but here they are saying that chaos has returned to the streets as now Raila Odinga takes his protests to the ground. These scenes were last witnessed in 2018 during demonstrations over the results of the general elections. Protesters and police yesterday engaged in running battles in Nairobi, Kisumu, Migori, Nakuru, Kakamega, and Kitale in response to a call for mass action by Azimio leader Raila Odinga. So let's begin with business. From the protests yesterday, the expectations, as even from last week when we were on this show, was that the Nairobi Securities Exchange will experience a dip and continue to be battered as it has been for the past few weeks. However, it is in a surprising turn of events, the Nairobi Securities Exchange defied these demonstrations, and we see that Safaricom staged a new gain of 9%, and one share there trading at 17 shillings from what we are seeing a drop last week. So 17, as investors are now buying in to counter those effects of low records which have been experiencing for the past few weeks. The stock market gained as well, 56 billion to close at 1.6 trillion from 1.66 trillion from 1.61 last week on Friday, which means that steady decline was not experienced regardless of business coming to a standstill in most parts of central Nairobi, which remained shut for a majority of the day because, of course, that anti-riot police who were pushing back the protesters attempting to access Moi Avenue and Parliament area. So the only businesses which were affected were the ones in the Nairobi CBD. The business community there bore the brunt of yesterday's protests. However, at NSE, we are seeing the biggest single day gain since September of last year. So I don't know how this is, how investors were informed to invest a bit more even amidst of this chaos, but the market was expected to continue to slide yesterday due to that dollar shortage, the rising interest rate, and developing world issues like the protests, which were sparking fears that foreign investors might be exiting the NSE. However, more money has been pumped, and now we're seeing the greatest gain since September last year. So good news there. The protest, even if they continue, Maandamano Monday, every single Monday, looks like NSE has got its stuff in order. So it's still good time. As I said last week, you can buy the dip. If you bought the dip last week on Safaricom, now your shares are a bit on the gain. So if you continue doing that, maybe in the next future, it will return back to normalcy. So the business daily there, business bears brunt of protests as the stock market stays indifferent. It's a sub-story on the business daily. The headline, though, is on that budget, on the allocation for the budget estimate the year 2022-2023, where 3 offices have now been allocated 100 million, though the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary has not been catered for yet. However, the exclusion of the Prime CS only cuts the expenditure by 10%, or just about 80 million. So we're expecting about 80 to 100 million allocated to that office. Specifically here, the Business Daily is taking a look at where this money is being spent on new cars, and the allocation for the purchase of new vehicles. For the president, the initial budget was 100 million, and now it is 431 million Kenyan shillings. The deputy president from 90 million to 290, and the Prime Cabinet Secretary, of course, we didn't have that before, but we're expecting there around 80 to 100 thereabout. So plus others in the offices, according to this allocation, we are expecting this number to rise all the way to 2 billion. That is from 800 million to 2 billion, the amount of money that has been allocated there for the financial year, or the estimates for 2022-2023. And this is not putting into consideration the 50 new CASs who are awaiting approval by Parliament, and of course that decision by High Court, which has now put that case as high priority to see whether it was a legal or legal procedures were followed and constitutional requirements were also followed in the appointment of the 50 CASs. You can read that story on the front of the Business Daily, and they are also having a ticker there, a ticker or a timer, to see what President William Ruto is spending as compared to President Uhuru Kenyatta. And it seems that the budget has grown on recurrent expenditure by 87 billion Kenyan shilling. President William Ruto has increased the budget for day-to-day running of the national government by 87 billion as his administration reorganizes budget plan inherited from the Uhuru administrations. Tough times ahead, and I was reading a comment by the chief economist of the Kenya Kwanza government, David Ndii. I don't know, maybe it was sarcasm or it was irony, saying that these appointments only factor in for a very small percentage of the government's wage bill, which stands at 600 billion Kenyan shillings. So apparently this will not put a dent on that wage bill, but I don't think Kenyans feel the same on or share those sentiments. We are waiting to see what kind of hole this will dig on Kenya's budget. Still on protests, who will blink first between Raila Amolo Odinga and President William Ruto? A tale of two Kenyas is painted here on the Daily Nation, where the page 2 of the Daily Nation shows various parts of the country where protests were taking place, and the police, of course, anti-riot police, responding to bonfires which were being lit, protesters who were throwing stones, and as well as arresting leaders plus demonstrators. A very interesting quote from one Kenyan who was a woman who was overwhelmed by tear gas, and recorded here by the Daily Nation. Another protester telling them, "Don't worry, mama, unga will soon be retailing at 50 shillings." And this is a protester to another as they cried through a smoke of tear gas there, and this is quite interesting to read on the Daily Nation. As Raila shuts down city, Ruto is staring him down. Raila Odinga yesterday was holed up in a city hotel for the better part of the day and trying to emerge and address the nation, however getting tear gassed, his entourage getting tear gassed and water cannons being sprayed to them. And we are asking now who will be blinking first. President William Ruto has access to the state instrument of violence, and this is quoting, of course, him and Rigathi Gachagua as they were terming it before they came into the helm of leadership. And the other one being Raila Amolo Odinga, who believes that the power rests with the masses. So does the power rest with the masses, or does the power rest with the instruments of violence that are held by the state? Mr. Odinga has given President William Ruto an ultimatum to lower the cost of living and open the election servers for scrutiny. But yesterday, cheap unga was the dominant call among the protesters. Police blocked protesters from accessing the CBD, as most of us are already aware, and we are expecting to see this very case repeated next week on Monday and in subsequent Mondays, as President William Ruto insists that he will not condone impunity, and Azimio leader Raila Odinga insists that he will continue to do that march and those protests until the government of the day hears to his case. Of course, the various issues that he's raising, the cost of living, the election results from last year, terming the current government illegitimate, and a host of other issues that he wants addressed. The Standard is calling that scenario no retreat. So Raila, no retreat, as he says, no retreat, no surrender, and they will press on with these demonstrations against the cost of living every Monday. We asked earlier on when we were having a discussion with the New South Institute on whether mass actions are a good solution to address the government, and also how the government can respond to this mass action protest by the citizens and by the opposition. So we are looking forward to see how that changes for the next few weeks in that Raila versus Ruto. Going back to the Business Daily, KPLC is still here, and Kenya Power is now betting on goodwill for dollar payments. I remember sometime back on Tuesday, we did highlight here that Kenya Power was asking EPRA to allow them to continue billing or to bill Kenyans in dollars, and now it is going to abandon that plan as customers, as the regulator, that is EPRA, says that he will not approve that move. However, Kenya Power says that for large consumers and large bill payments, they are still going to pursue dollar payments as forex reserves are dwindling in Kenya. Dollar shortages are being experienced across major banks, and also opening that black market for the dollar exchange. So they will be accepting dollar payments for big power consumers in a month's time, so that is as of next month, and also as a set stage for payments or for new tariffs, awaiting EPRA's approval of adjustment of electricity tariffs upwards, an upward of 78% expected in April of 2023. Kenya Power still is struggling with debt repayment, and the Business Daily is highlighting that. I saw this in a page here that I still can't seem to reach as fast as possible. However, payments that are crippling operations over at Kenya Power, debts that are owed to here, that is amounting to $6 billion, and these are loans which Kenya Power has taken from Stanchart, and also repayments which it still needs to make to the power suppliers like KenGen and others that they are dealing with in terms of electricity distribution. So the problems that are facing KPLC might be translated down to the common man. You can expect that adjustment of tariffs next month on April, once EPRA approves that. There's an opinion piece as well that I wanted to highlight here on the Standard on how tech can be used to combat bandits in the North Rift and in the Greater Rift region, where the government is really keen on flashing out bandits in areas where insecurity has been experienced for quite some time now. CS Kindiki sending out the security forces from KDF to police officers who are now on the ground flashing out those bandits from ravines and gorges where they've been hiding out, and trying to appeal to Kenyans to also help them in this move of moving out of these places, and also reporting of any cases of spotting these bandits, and also helping the government towards taking care of that insecurity case. There's an opinion piece that you can read on the Standard where they are suggesting that the government can access technology such as drone technology as well as surveillance tech to see where exactly these bandits are hiding, and also combat them in an efficient and modern day manner. Your take on that is still valued, so you can be sending in your opinion pieces. The Standard is printing as much as it can the outlook by Kenyans on how the government can be approaching some of these situations. Most of the stories on the dailies today are focusing on the protests from yesterday and how that is going to affect business. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua saying that the government has lost, or Kenya has lost 2 billion Kenyan shillings. I don't know how he came to those calculations or that realization, but here on Biashara Tuesday, we'll continuously be analyzing these numbers, having a look at the statistics across the week, and also breaking it down when we come back on business next week on Tuesday, and see how exactly the business in the country is being affected, how the economy is changing according to these mass protests which are expected to continue every single Monday. Grab yourself a copy of the Standard or the Daily Nation and the Business Daily, but if you have any other, please do tell us what the headlines are looking like right there, and then we can also share ideas and also reactions and comments on these developments. This is still Biashara Tuesday. I'm going out to read your comments, and then we can come and round up matters of business. Remember, by the way, opposition protests are rocking various countries across Africa: Kenya, Nigeria, Tunisia, and South Africa. These demos are being held to push the concerned leaders to reduce the cost of living, address corruption, unemployment, issues of election rigging, especially in Nigeria, which is just right out of a general election a few weeks ago. And we are expecting this to continue in all these countries. An interesting one, in France, President Emmanuel Macron is also under pressure after trade union called citizens to take to the streets, and they did go to the streets. And what they are protesting is actually very interesting. The country increased the retirement age from 62 years to 64. Just a gap of 2 years, just an increase of 2 years, and this has led the country to go to protests. So France is also joining these 5 other African countries, but their issue is not the cost of living or corruption or runaway inflation. Theirs is the retirement age from 62 64, saying that these people are continuing to hold positions of power even after they've become as old as 64. I'm hoping they can take a tour in Kenya and in Africa and see, maybe we could be in protest on a daily basis if this was the issue that we were addressing. I forgot to read the quotes at the back of the Business Daily, and today is from the top man in matters of technology and computer, and this is Steve Jobs. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the result of other people's thinking. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Steve Jobs quoted there at the back of the Business Daily. On the comment section, I see Boniface Ongere, handshake is loading between Raila Odinga and William Ruto, and this is a reaction to the protests. Mwangi Daniel, the New South Institute is really taking a step in addressing the political unrest in their country, which I wish was the case in our country too. A reaction to that conversation we had with the director of the New South Institute based in Johannesburg. And of course, they're trying to see how they can address and partner with governments to strengthen delicate democracies and ensure there's credibility in government institutions or institutions of, or in public institutions thereof. Fishware, tuning in from the City of Angels, always ready for Tuesday. Great conversation, guys. Thank you very much, Fishtown, for creating time, and Fishware as a whole. Ashley Asachi, Okeze, hi and good morning. I have been tuned in to Biashara Tuesday since 8 a.m. live from Gong Road. Asante sana Ashley Asachi for tuning in, and you can also check out Ashley Asachi. You can also check out Ashley Asachi. That's quite a tongue twister. She has a Fashion Diaries series that you can check out on KUTV Kenya and see what developments are happening in the world of fashion. Very exciting events and very exciting developments as well. Remember, this year Halt Prize are also having the theme of fashion. So if you're innovating around fashion, that's also a show you can take a look at and see how you can translate it to issues or to matters of business. Thank you for creating time for us here on Biashara Tuesday. Remember, we have a whole team that runs this show. It takes a village to raise a child, and it also takes a village to run Biashara Tuesday, and we are glad you can support us and comment and share and invite more people to be tuning in to KUTV Rise Today as a whole, and also to Biashara Tuesday. Remember, next week on Monday and every other Monday, you get Karen Blessing on art and culture, having a look at matters of art and also culture in Kenya and worldwide, and then come back here on Tuesday to bring you business conversations. I'm finishing up today with a quote from the book I'm currently reading, which is 1984 by George Orwell, famously known for his book Animal Farm, ama Shamba la Wanyama. He has a book called 1984, which is a political satire, and I felt it's relevant to what we're experiencing in Kenya today, and I'll finish with that. He says in the book, of course the protagonist in the book is the one saying it, but of course the author is the originator of the idea. There are only 4 ways in which a ruling group can fall from power. 1, conquered from without. 2, governs so inefficiently that the masses are stirred to a revolt. 3, it allows a strong and discontented middle class to come into being. 4, loses its own self-confidence and willingness to govern. These causes do not operate singly, and as a rule, all 4 of them are present to some degree. Think about that as we go on with the week and meet back here on Tuesday. As I finish off, if you want to have breakfast in bed, sleep in the kitchen. I'll see you.